Thank you, everyone who partnered here. I want to tell you all a little bit about my history in the anti-hunger and food insecurity space, because I think that context is sort of important. I started out my career as a research scientist, and I was doing diabetes prevention and weight loss prevention work. And I went to a classroom in early 2010. And it was a health lesson. I was teaching people about nutrition and healthy eating. And there was this little boy, and I will never forget his face. He was sort of melancholy, and he was flipping pencils into the drop-down pop ceiling that they have in a lot of industrial buildings. And I was like, oh, how rude. I can't believe it. And the teacher walked up to him and said, hey, honey, did you have breakfast? No. Did you have dinner last night? No. All right, why don't you go to the nurse and have something to eat, and when you feel like you can do school, come back. We have a lot of conversations in the anti-hunger space about feeding children while they're at school and making sure people have healthy, balanced food at home. But the realistic challenge for so many families is not just the skipped meals or reduced food quality that so many people face when they're food insecure, but it's the constant stress about worrying about whether or not you'll have enough. We know that that is especially true in parents who they will often sacrifice what they're eating so their children get enough and then still feel like their children are eating an inferior quality of food. And oftentimes people think, oh, okay, so they're not getting name brand Cheerios and they're getting the store brand. No, it means that their child has a diagnosis of prediabetes or someone in their household has cardiovascular disease, and instead of being able to buy healthy fruits and vegetables and lean proteins and dairy products, they're reliant on ultra-processed foods, which we're hearing a lot about these days. But that is often what's affordable when you're struggling to make ends meet. And when you see erosions to the SNAP program like what we see in HR 1 and the tremendous trauma that families experienced in November when they didn't know whether or not their benefits would come through, the stress that people feel in those moments is incredibly consequential. And families will continue to feel that. I'm the House Chair of the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, and I'm acutely aware about how many veterans are losing benefits under this HR 1 change. And it's hard for me to imagine that we have veterans who served our country with honor and dignity, who are struggling to make ends meet now, and who were getting food assistance, and now we will make them jump through more hoops and work harder and maybe still not even make enough to feed their families. And perhaps the allies that were their help overseas to make sure that they were safe, the interpreters who are here under refugee status, those folks are ineligible now for those benefits too. And it's hard for me to imagine that this is how we treat folks, but what we're doing here in this program is trying to help fill the gap. And I want to draw attention to the fact that the amount of money that we're raising here is not by scale anywhere close to the amount that we're seeing in federal cuts. So we need to raise more money and fill this gap, but we need to ask you all to think about your friends and neighbors who are really suffering in these moments with these benefits lost. So I hope you'll consider making a donation, and I also hope that you'll consider advocating on behalf of the families in your community that are now going to be suffering. Before I move away, I want to say that this moment is a glimmer of hope. We called the United Way, and they were like, yep, totally on it. We can make a landing page. We can help you distribute the cards. We can get this thing moving. We called corporate sponsors, and people donated right away. I called Chris Davis from CBIA, and he was like, here's 15 people who I know will help you with food delivery services. They made multiple introductions. And then we called the Grocery Store Association, and the Grocery Store Association, who's also suffering with SNAP losses, was like, no, we can get you more cards at a discount. We can talk to our membership, and they helped connect us with grocers. This was a story of incredible generosity, and I love knowing that that beauty exists in a moment that we're feeling fear. So I hope you'll consider donating, and thank you so much to the people who gave us a glimmer of hope in this moment where I'm feeling a little worried about folks, but it's nice to also know that people are there to lean in a moment of need. So thank you.